Welcome, bienvenidos to our first 1515. The Multicultural Institute become 15 years old, and we're really excited. We're going to have our virtual quinceañera. And today we're going to have two great guests, Sonia and Peter Sandroni. But before I introduce them, I want to talk to you a little bit about this initiative. So I'm going to share my screen. So stated, as part of our celebration of becoming 15 years old and our quinceañera, we're gonna be featuring entrepreneurs who have done great things for Milwaukee in economic development, in workforce development, and contributing to our community. And today, I'm gonna showcase my first ever client when I was a baby and started doing this work. So let me talk to you a little bit about the Institute. So the Institute was founded in 2006. And as of yesterday, we had helped 4,011 businesses get started. So I need to update this slide. We provide classes in business, marketing, computers, and we also do marketing services, taxation. There's 6 people in my team. Those 6 people are Rocio Juarez, Alfredo Diaz, who focus on taxation, Elizabeth Cruz in bookkeeping, Pablo Novelli, marketing, and Delmar Vasquez in training. Myself, who's going to be your host, Nelson Solar. I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years, as you noted, in my business. 28 years serving as an educator in the Milwaukee area. I'm a realtor and enroll agent with the IRS, and you can see here my transformation. This is when I started, and long, vibrant, nice mustache, and this is now how I look now. This was in an event last year. So today we're showcasing Peter and Sonia Sandroni, who are one of my favorite clients ever, and has supported my business indirectly and directly for many years. If you want to learn more about the Institute, you can always reach us by calling us at 414-383-4633 or by sending an email to info@multiculturalinstitute.com. So without any further ado, I want to stop sharing this and I want to showcase my guests today. We have Peter and Sonia Sandroni. They're the founders, owners of many things. Primarily, I met them through La Merenda 125. Now they have engine number 3. And I know Peter has started some organic, local grown other businesses. So welcome, Peter and Sonia. How
Thank
are you
you.
today?
We're doing great. How are you?
Great.
Doing very well, thank you.
So people talk a lot about success, and I think that success is relative depending how you look at it. So I want you to talk a little bit about your history, La Merenda, how that started, how it has migrated to the empire that the Sandronis had created these days. So give us a little bit about yourself, your history, and I will probably ask you some questions, how we got to know each other, and we'll talk to the audience a little bit about all the things I know about both of you. So I will leave the floor to both of you. So go ahead, Peter and Sonia.
This could be a really long interview, Nelson, but we'll start with around the time that we met you. I'm from the Milwaukee area. I met Sonia down in Atlanta, and while down there, I was working for my aunt and uncle's restaurant, and we fell in love and we got married, and I told her that I wanted to move back to Milwaukee and open up a restaurant. She has a sister who has been involved in a couple other businesses in the Atlanta area, and one of her friends found some success going through the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. When we moved to Milwaukee, I myself was hitting a couple of roadblocks, so Sonia's like, let's try the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Through them, it is how we found our way to you over at UWM Continuing Education and the startup of the MEI. We enrolled in your business plan writing class. I had been working in the restaurant business at that point for about 15 years and had worked in a wide variety of different restaurant styles, cuisines, in different cities, Chicago, Atlanta, Milwaukee. Had done what are called stages, which is internships in some other places. So I felt that it was time for me to open up my own restaurant. With that being said, I did not know how to actually physically open the restaurant, and where to begin and how to start. And that's how we ended up in discussion with you.
And I am an industrial engineer, so I think that was one of the areas that I knew that we needed to have a business plan and we needed to like have a solid foundation to be able to open the business. So I was working in pro healthcare at that time, and then Peter was full time trying to get the restaurant open. So I think it was every Thursday that we used to have classes. I can't remember anymore. But I think it was necessary. Like we got all the foundation because as an engineer, I know how to like write processes and things like that. But just the fact that we had so many resources that of things that you don't know and like how to approach the banks, like what you needed to have for sure in the business plan. And I think having somebody that knows like the business per se, like the chef. Like I will say that if you want to open a business, if you don't have a clue of what you're doing, that is going to be a problem. So we needed Peter being able to be the chef and knowing the kitchen side. And I had kind of like the front of the financial and all the convincing the writing of the plan and all of that and numbers. So I think that is important, always having the basic knowledge to be able to open the business. That is one thing that is very important.
Well, I think so. Remember, I think it has some echo here, so I'm gonna do something here. So I don't know you remember the first name of your business because it wasn't La Merenda 125.
No,
I
it
still
wasn't.
have your business plan here in one of the shelves, and I opened it the other day. What was the name of the business?
It was the revolving plate.
The revolving plate. And I don't know if you recall that when the business was when you were going for your business pitch to different bankers, they thought that your idea might not work because the portions that you were thinking were small, and people in Wisconsin will not go for a mini steak or anything like that. And it turned out to be wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about specifically your first adventure, which was La Merenda 125. Tell me a little bit about what were your biggest challenges in the process? What do you learn from that process? So others who are thinking perhaps in opening a restaurant in spite of opposition, because people oppose your idea, if I remember correctly. Some people felt that having a tapas restaurant in Milwaukee wasn't ready for that. And look, now, I mean, I cannot get there. I mean, now with COVID is an exception, but typically, if I want to get there on a Thursday, it's impossible. It's impossible because you're always full on normal time. So tell us a little bit about that. And while you do that, I will share with the public your website of La Merenda 125.
So, yeah, and as you noted, small plates were definitely unique to the Milwaukee area. And then when going in and talking to bankers that have been in the Milwaukee area for a really long time and were used to the style of dining that Milwaukee had become famous for, whether it's a supper club or maybe an old German style restaurant, or even some of the older Italian restaurants where you still got like pasta and meatball and breadsticks. And we were trying to break the mold because we were introducing something called tapas. And people, this is no joke, and I think you might remember this, Nelson, people thought we were saying topless. They really literally thought that we were trying to open up a strip joint. So we had to educate a lot of people about what we were going to do. So that was a huge hurdle and obstacle for us to educate people on exactly the style of dining we were going to do and how we were going to present the food. We knew it was going to be successful to a degree, didn't expect it to be as successful as it is, because based on some models that we had visited in the Atlanta and Chicago area and how widely accepted and how popular they were, we figured to a smaller degree, because Milwaukee is a smaller city, and because of the simple fact that we thought it was be smaller reception at the beginning because it was so new. But I think that worked for us. We opened up a restaurant in a neighborhood that was untapped at the time, and we started with something that was very unique, and that in and of itself was huge for our success. Opening something that was no one had ever seen before in a neighborhood that a lot of people hadn't been to in years really worked very well for us. But it took a struggle. It was a huge struggle to convince people to eat smaller portions, to share their food, to get something and then pass it along to someone else. And that ended up being, again, partly an obstacle at the beginning, but then became something that people fell in love with, because we have so many menu items We know that not everyone's gonna like everything on our menu, but if you don't like it, just pass it on. Go to the next, pass on that dish and try a new one.
And I think that is one of the biggest things that we saw, like changing for us. We both love tapas style dining. And in Atlanta, there were a couple of Spanish tapas restaurants, but they were only Spanish. And we also made another difference on the style of dining because we wanted to do it international. I don't know if you mentioned this, but I am from Colombia, so I have always missed a lot of the dishes that I had in Colombia. And here there were a couple of restaurants, but they were not small plates. And I don't like to eat like the big dishes. I was kind of the opposite. And when I came to Milwaukee, it was difficult because everything was huge. So we both really wanted to have tapas. And like he said, I think the biggest issue that we ran into was the education. It took for us educating all our staff as well as all the customers. So every time somebody came to the restaurant, we always ask, are you familiar with tapas? Have you ever dined with us? And if they didn't, then we went through a whole spiel of things that this is how you do it. This is how many dishes we recommend. And it took a while. I think I'll say it took probably like a good year to get a lot of the customers to get used to the style of dining and to get customers that will come back and repeat the business.
And now look, I mean, it's interesting to see not only a small plates a category in a lot of if you look up on the Journal Sentinel's dining guide or the Milwaukee Magazine's dining guide or Shepherd Express, whatever you go to look to find some, some place to look for new restaurants. Small plates and not only is it small plates is a category in of itself, so our international small plates. I had never realized that we were going to have such a profound influence on the dining scene in the Milwaukee area. And to go back to the original, having cuisines from all over the world was important because I had worked in a wide variety of different cuisines. Sonia's Colombian, my family's from Italy. I worked in a lot of Asian restaurants in Chicago. And we felt that the smaller portions were going to kind of force people to try some stuff that they would not have tried otherwise, because it's like in some cases, they're just a couple of bites. So you want to get another dish, and that really worked well for us to expose people to some stuff that they would never have tried otherwise.
Great. So this is a perfect example for the people who are viewing us and listening. People tend to think that entrepreneurs can only innovate in like technology and manufacturing and everything like that. And we have seen, and I have witnessed for the last 15 years, a little bit more than that, because I think I started 1 year later or 6 months after you open or were opening, that you can innovate in every field. And when Peter and Sonia started with this, tapas were foreign here. If I remember, there was only one Spanish restaurant that served them, and that was about it. And now many of the Latino restaurants or Latino fusion restaurants have taken this concept of tapas, and now it has become widely popular in the greater Milwaukee area. And I think we can attribute that primarily to your educational piece and to your innovation and being persistent. And one of the things I can say about this couple is that they're very persistent. And sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you even have to be stubborn a little bit, right, Peter?
Just a little.
I remember the great discussions you had when you were doing forecasts and projections in the class.
Oh
Another piece that is interesting and important when you're starting a business, besides obviously having an innovative idea, was this piece of financing. I know that was a challenge at times for you. I remember meeting with you for coffee after you had gotten primarily your first loan, and then they discover some environmental issues with your restaurant, and there was a gap financing there. And I was fortunate enough to help you a little bit with that. And then I was sitting on a board of a bank, and I was able to, tap on the shoulder of some people and say, we gotta help this idea. Can you talk a little bit about how financing has impacted your idea? Because you had grown from La Merenda to Engine 3 and to your little store that you have. So tell us a little bit how important it was to find the right financing, find the right partners, and how that has affected and influenced your business.
You want to start with that?
Yeah, I am gonna say that, like, I think the most important friends besides Nelson, that you can have when you're gonna open a business is your lawyer and your finance or your banker. Your banker is the key to the success that you will have. And you know, one thing that we saw looking at other banks, we tried to go with the bigger banks, and that didn't work. We ended up going with the smaller banks, a community bank, and that was the only way we were able to get finances, because they, like the other banks, were looking for something like we said before, the idea of the tapas restaurant was a very new thing, and we had money saved, but of course not even close to be able to have a business like this. But having your finances, if you're gonna go and apply for a loan, you gotta have some solid finances, some collateral, because they're gonna always ask you for your collateral. But the relationship that you develop with your banker is probably one of the most important things that you're gonna be able to do. I can tell you right now that our current banker, we ended up following her to a different bank. The relationship, that's what has allowed us to even open engine company, just because we were able to develop a good relationship and having a solid business plan. If you don't have a solid business plan, you know, just trying to put something in paper and throw money at it is not going to do it. You really have to go through all the different points. You have to have your marketing done. You have to have your target customer area. You have to have, again, your finances in check. You projections. Projections are very important, because you can put money in it, but if you don't know when you're gonna start making money, that is gonna be a big problem. And if your numbers, you have to be very, like, keep watching your numbers very closely, because that is gonna let you know if you can invest more money, if you can spend money, if you have to start tightening inventories. All of that is very, very, very important in any kind of business. It can be manufacturing, it can be a store, it can be a restaurant. The only thing that changes is what you're putting in there as your variables, but everything else is going to be the same.
And to just elaborate on that, the relationship you have with the professional people to support your restaurant, the banker, your accountant, and your lawyer, are super important.
Mm-hmm.
The banker is intimately involved in your business if they're going to be a smaller community bank and care about the community. That was really important to us. We discovered quickly that we actually got approved by one of the larger banks in the, not just the state, in the country, but they requested a ton of money down. And you could tell quickly too that they were more concerned about the numbers like how many restaurants are they going to have in their portfolio versus where will we put in this restaurant, what the impact it was going to have on our community, what impact it was going to have on us individually. So settling with a smaller bank, getting a banker that's going to understand your industry, that understands the neighborhood you want to be in, someone that's going to be, an advocate for you further down the road. So then to elaborate on continuing financing, the cash flow is really important. We were able to cash flow pretty quickly. The projections that we wrote in the business plan were pretty spot on. The class that we took with you, Nelson, prepared us so well, because I'm sure you remember it was broken down. Each week was a different segment of the business plan, but a good quarter of the entire, classes were spent on putting together the financing aspect of it, understanding how the projections work, not just putting in the projections, but understanding how they work, how they were going to impact cash flow, when break-even point was going to be, and then how we were going to maintain that cash flow once we get past the break-even point. So then we were always able to maintain, and something that we take pride in still to this day, cash flow. Cash flow is super important. And it has never been more important than this last year. Yeah. I mean, going through a pandemic as a restaurant has been a struggle, but we have continued to cash flow decently. There have been moments where we didn't know if we were going to get through it or not, but we got through it. And there were moments where we came out of it, it's like, wow, that wasn't as horrible as we may have thought it may have appeared to be. And because of that, of being able to cash flow, allowed us to get that second restaurant, and then to do some further financing with enhancing patios at both restaurants, adding on, as you said, a marketplace to La Merenda. We're always trying to pivot. We're always trying to come up with something new. We're trying to, we can't innovate technologically as well as, a lot of people think you need to. We have to try to keep up with the technology as it applies to the restaurant business. but we are always trying to come up with a new way to create sales streams and new experiences for our customers.
And one thing that has been very important for us has been the relationship with the community. Even when we were taking the class, we developed some really good relationships with the other people that were part of the class, and they still, so some of them we still see. But like what you develop with your customer, with the community, like for us, one of our biggest pieces of the community is our farmers. We have a very close relationship with farmers. We believe in the environment, in farm to table, and buying fresh and giving the best product that we can give to our customers. So I think the more you know your customer, then the more you know your community, and using each other for different things. We have tried as much as we can to buy local and to buy from people that we know, because if we do well, they do well, and we as a community do better.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit how you leave from La Merenda to Engine to the market. What was the process in that, Peter?
I don't know if you recall, Nelson, at the very beginning, we weren't certain where we were going to go with the restaurant. So not knowing the neighborhood per se, we had kind of written two business plans. We wrote one for a small place restaurant and one for a breakfast place. It was more detailed in the small plates one because we figured that was going to be the harder one to write for a variety of reasons, because of the marketing aspect, the education of what we were doing, tapas versus topless. The whole, it just felt like that might be an easier restaurant to put in a lot of different neighborhoods than a breakfast place. So we focused more on La Merenda at the very beginning, and then we found the building that we currently are in. And what led us into Engine Company was my always desire from the very beginning to have a breakfast place as well. And I think deep down, I almost kind of wanted that first. But my gut and my instinct and coming and taking classes with you and talking to financial people and Sonia with their engineering, like this is not going to be the best fit for this neighborhood just yet. Walker's Point was rough and tumble at the very beginning. 15 years ago, there was still a decent amount of crime down here, and there was, it was petty, personal crime. There was a lot of smash and grab in windows and maybe stealing of purses and stuff like that. But over time, as more buildings came down here, more businesses open, we have Surmark, and we have, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 more restaurants within 2 or 3 blocks of us. The neighborhood changed dramatically. And with that change came apartments and condos. Wow, we must have, I can't imagine how many units there are. I think it's up to well over 1,000 units now. We had 0 units within La Merenda. Within 4 blocks of La Merenda, there was 0 apartment building units. Now there's over 1,000 within 3 blocks. Another stat that I heard, when you look at the 12th ward itself, it's broken down in a variety of different ways. And our little section of the 12th ward where we're at goes from National Avenue from the highway, so roughly about 9th to the lake, down to Greenfield and back up. When we first opened up La Merenda, there was like a 22% owner occupancy of houses. And it's now up to 70% of the houses in this neighborhood are owner occupied. So this neighborhood has come a long way. And when I saw that stat, I'm like, all right, now maybe it's time to start looking for a breakfast place. And it was luck. It was luck. We just happened to be at the right place at the right time when we got a call from a person that was kind of dealing with the city on another project and say, hey, look at this firehouse at 270 West National Avenue is going to be available. Keep an eye out for that when that goes public. I think that is where you might want to do your next project. And that was it. It's a gorgeous building. I passed it, up until we opened that restaurant. It was 7 years before we moved, from La Merenda to Engine Company, and passed it every day for 7 straight years, and just thought that would be a really cool building for something. And I wasn't certain what it would be, but it ended up being a breakfast place. So it turned into our breakfast place that we are, we struggle a little through COVID. It's made its way through it. We were, I guess if deep down, we probably knew how much lunch was dependent upon businesses in the neighborhood, but it wasn't so certain. You know, we didn't really write a survey and ask people to fill out, hey, where are you coming from right now from lunch? But you can kind of guess based on some of the tags people might wear, because it might say MATC or site staffing or Rockwell or any one of the architectural firms. So we kind of knew that it was a big amount, but we didn't know how big it was until it was gone.
And it was pretty big. With COVID, all the businesses working from home, that was a big hit.
But now we're seeing the development of the neighborhood is coming through because Saturday and Sunday brunch is huge. That is carrying us. Those 2 days alone is carrying that restaurant through the pandemic. And we have, you know, again, luckily we opened up a patio in 2019 right before COVID. And that really saved that restaurant by having an outside dining space all last summer. And as you probably know, people sat out in the cold much longer or earlier and longer than ever before this past year. People traditionally, historically, would not have sat out on a patio in October, November to eat, but they did this year. And that was huge. And so we keep pivoting and trying to find something new. We did the market. The market got converted during the pandemic to online because we were unable to have anyone in our space due to COVID restrictions. It was me and the butcher, and that was it. That's all we could have in the building at the time then. That's what the city told us. You can no longer have any more people in here. So we put it virtually. And that has worked well for us. We sell a lot of our goods, maybe even more, online, and it's seamless and it's easy. And people place orders at the same time for food from either restaurant that they want hot to go at the moment. And then they order eggs or flour or sausages or whatever it might be, a whole chicken, whatever it might be, then to take and cook later. So it almost seems like the market is maybe even more successful now virtually than it was as a store, physical brick and mortar building.
And that's an interesting thing. COVID had really forced us to recreate ourselves, to rethink our business models, and you had giving us two great examples in which I've been advocating businesses to think outside the box in terms of distribution of your product and your service. And I think that online store, now that you have experienced it, probably that's something you can boost and triple the volume and keep that when the economy opens up. Now you had that built a new system
Correct.
to distribute your products. For us, it has been the fact that I never thought doing taxes virtually. And I'm doing a lot of taxes via Zoom and WhatsApp and other mediums. And also the hybrid mode of teaching, you know, culturally, and Sonia probably can attest to that, most Latinos want to be in front of the instructor. They want to talk and complain and share their ideas. They don't want to learn virtually. And there are different levels of literacy with technology. And we had learned that by using this medium and this platform, for instance, that we're using today, not that I want to promote it too much because they're not paying me for this, but it has extended my ability to teach. I had people taking my class from Texas and from New Jersey, one of my classes last year. And I hope that that will be now a way in which I can distribute what I do as well. So we had talked about four things that you had shared with us: the need to innovate in spite of opposition. You had talked to us about the importance of planning and formally going through that process, not just taking it lightly. You also talked about the importance of partnering with a bank, an attorney, and perhaps an accountant, which I called your external team, your counselors. They all want you to succeed. I will add my insurance agent to that.
Yes.
And then finally, you talk about the need to be part of a community and leveraging that. And that has taken you through these hard times to maintain your business and to think about it differently. So I will want to give you in closing few minutes for you to give any advice in addition to that you want to give to the people who are listening, and also to invite them to your places and tell us a little bit about how you're serving people these days so they can tap into you, because that's also part of this program, so people can get to know you as well.
Okay.
Sure. So we had to obviously pivot greatly through COVID. 2019 had been a challenge for everybody in restaurants. I think maybe the only industry that might have seen a bigger hit than the restaurant industry. Well, there's two for sure: hotel, airlines, and then public music venues. They really got hit hard. We were lucky that just happenstance that prior to 2019, we had switched a lot of the way our point of sale system that we have inside the restaurant. We switched a lot of things to online. So people could buy gift cards online. People could order things in the restaurant for customers, for example, birthday cakes in particular. So you could order a birthday cake for a customer in advance of them dining online. We did that for a variety of reasons. One, there was a change in the credit card processing when the chip came out. We could no longer take credit card numbers over the phone. We could actually still to this day take it, but then we take a big hit on that. They actually charge us a lot to key in that credit card because the chip protects the people externally from, obviously nefarious characters. And then once we actually have the physical card in hand and we put that in, we are bypassing that protection. So we made a move, quite frankly, to save that 5% hit that credit cards were charging us to do this transactions to a lot of things online. And we got lucky that we already had the platform in place and we pushed that on. So then we had that infrastructure. So then we had to change the physical structure inside our business. And we, for the first time as a business, said to our staff, because we've always been customer-driven restaurant, we still remain a customer-driven restaurant. But I have to admit that if push came to shove with a customer-employee dispute over something, I'm more than likely, almost 9 times out of 10, sided with the customer. The customer is almost always right. And that we held as virtual in our restaurant, as a virtue in our restaurant, was very important. But with COVID, we decided to pivot and said to our staff, your health, my health, is most important to what's going to go forward. We want to try to make as much money as we possibly can, but more importantly, we need to stay healthy. We need to keep from getting sick. We need to keep spreading throughout the community what was unforeseen. It's still unforeseen, and we don't know how it's spreading all the time. And now there's new variants and all these things. So Sonia then took that part and wrote a comprehensive COVID plan with the city, went through and changed where we have sanitizing stations all throughout the restaurant, inside and out. We have these barriers between all our tables. We have barriers between customers that sit at the bar. We took protection to our customers to a level that we feel that not a lot of other people have gone. And we seem almost unparalleled in that level. And that small investment, which at the very beginning, in the middle of the pandemic, and there's not a lot of cash coming in, seemed huge. That seemed like overwhelming. Like, can we really make this purchase? And Sonia did the numbers, because she's an engineer, and said, we cannot not make this purchase. We have to do this.
And I'll say that that's the other piece of advice. Like, if you have anything that the city or the government is offering, take it. Like, I know at the beginning, a lot of people were afraid of taking the risk, like, because these loans that they were given were really like unknown. We didn't know a lot of information, but we took a lot of risks to be able to maintain all our employees, to be able to provide all the safety and the precautions for everybody. And at the end of the day, it paid off, because but keep your paperwork. If you keep your paperwork on everything and know exactly what you're getting yourself into, if you're gonna get a loan, make sure that, and then you have to spend it on something specific, spend it on that. Don't spend it on something else, because then you're gonna get caught and you don't wanna be owing that money. But take the risk. I think the loans and the help that the government is providing is very helpful, but follow up with the paperwork and make sure that you guys are doing everything you can. I think right now the measurements, don't cut corners. If you cut corners, that's when you're gonna get in trouble. We have been very lucky that most of our staff, of course, like with COVID, is almost impossible to be 100% spared from the illness, but we have been very lucky that we haven't got an outbreak. We haven't had any issues related to
anyone who got COVID, of any of our
outside.
employees got it away from the restaurant, all either taken care of of a older family member. Someone got it, taking someone to the hospital, we suspect. But no one at all in our restaurant ever got infected from another employee. We were able to keep people away from the restaurant.
And I think customers see that and they feel comfortable going to the restaurant. So just make sure you don't cut corners. That's probably the best advice related to COVID. And write all your protocols. And again, this is like tapas. Train your people. And if somebody makes a mistake, just correct it and keep going. Don't go back to bad habits. On COVID, that's probably the main thing that we can say.
And I'll just say one last thing. You know, we're 15 years older. We've had this restaurant out for 15 years, and 15 years ago, we had a ton of energy. We were young, we had no kids yet. We were hungry to make this business successful. But over time, we added staff. We were able to maybe not work every single day, every single hour of every day. We scaled it back. But we have never stopped working hard. Owning a restaurant in particular is going to be hard work. It's a labor of love. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, then don't do it. But one of the things I said to our employees, and this is the thing that I'm really surprised to see how many other restaurants in the Milwaukee area have kind of threw in the towel. I promised them, you know, I was hoping maybe in year 15 and maybe pull back just a little bit to get a little bit more time back to myself and to the family. But we doubled down. I put in more time now than ever. And I promised staff that I don't know where this finish line is at. I don't know exactly when and how we're going to get there. But I promised everyone, Sonia and I were going to drag them if we had to. We were going to get everyone over the finish line. And we have not stopped working hard.
Yeah, and take care of your staff and be involved. Because the thing is that we have been involved in the business since we opened. I worked for almost the entire time in another company, but I was always working somehow, somewhere in the company. So you gotta keep an eye on the ball. If you give it to somebody else, nobody's gonna do it like you do. So that's one thing that we learn and we continue doing.
Excellent. We thank Sonia and Peter for being with us today. Thank you, Sonia and Peter. As a reminder, this is the series of 15 times 15 years of MEI, working with businesses in the community. From Sonia and Peter, we learn to innovate, to plan, to partner with your bank, your accountant, your attorney, to connect with your community. The community has assisted them through this COVID and pandemic, and they have been in partnership with them to take risks and take care of your employees. So this is our edition 316 2021. And we'll see you soon with our next edition. We'll see 15 people in 15 weeks in celebration of MEI. We thank you, Sonia and Peter, for not only starting a business that was innovative, but being committed to it, building a community, and being innovators in your industry. And we hope a lot of success for you in the future. And I hope to go back to your restaurant physically because I enjoy the ambience very soon.
Thank you, Nelson.
Thank you, Nelson, and thank you for all the help that you gave us too.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. You deserve it.
Feliz quinceañera.